the point of the algorithm is not to like punish or hurt people. It's not actually a bad thing. It's like, originally when Facebook was just you and like 20 of your friends in college, you wanted to see everything they were posting. But now you have 4,000 friends, and if you had to see every meal and baby photo and bad song lyric and Throwback Thursday posted by all 4,000 people, you would stop using these platforms. And so that's why it's so important to create content that is worth engaging with, that asks a question, that creates a conversation.
Welcome back to the Ground Up Show. Today, I'm sitting down with Leigh to talk about creating content, how to prepare for virality. It's kind of like preparing for a good earthquake, and the exact kind of consistency that's going to help you grow an audience. Her mantra is pretty simple: capture joy and build community. Hope's danced with a few viral campaigns in her day that we cover on this podcast. It's super interesting. These days, she's a branding strategist and content creator that works with dozens of brands to make their shit look dope online. That's kind of like my mantra. Her mantra is a little bit more beautiful than mine. Anyway, before we get into the conversation, a couple things. Do you like this podcast? Have you gotten some value out of it? There are a few ways that you can help. I really want to try to keep this thing advertisement free, so a little bit of love from you goes a really long way. You can share your favorite episode with a family member, a friend, or a fellow creative, maybe an episode that you have gotten the most value out of. The word of mouth it's my favorite way to get the word out there naturally. Of course, you can leave a review on iTunes. These reviews really help to promote and promote the visibility of the show. So say something nice online. That helps. And the last thing, tell somebody that you care about them. That's not going to help the podcast necessarily. I just think it would help you, and it's just going to make you feel better. Think somebody that you haven't told in a while. Tell them you love them. Tell them you care, and tell them that you're there for them. I think that would just, I don't know, it's a little corny, but maybe we can make the world a better place. All right. We answer a question on this podcast, a great question from a young college student, a young creator. It was really thoughtful, and I've been getting these questions in since the beginning of the year, and I love including them and incorporating them onto the podcast when it makes sense. So if you have a question you're dying to know, that you're itching to get solved, my guest and I can help you out. Record a video, keep it under 2 minutes, and send it to hello@mattdiavella.com. If it fits with the show, I'll put it on. We'll talk about it. We'll get to the bottom of it. I found this to be really insightful and really helpful because as much as I like to think we can cover all the territory we can in an hour, hour and a half, it's really great to hear from you guys and to hear specifically about the things that you're struggling with. So yeah, that's that. And that's the intro. What do you say we get into this week's podcast? This is Leigh. You're listening to The Ground Up Show, a podcast that inspires creatives to make meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name's Matt Diavella, and I'm a filmmaker best known for the Netflix documentary Minimalism. And I'm sitting down with creators to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact. Yeah, you want to do a podcast?
Yeah.
Excited? Mm-hmm. Fired up? Mm-hmm. All right. I feel you do a little bit of like radio stuff, and you've worked with NPR a bit.
Yeah. I've been with them for a few years. I don't usually do it where I'm also on camera anymore. That's my only nerve-wracking part.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that most people don't watch.
Oh, great.
These.
Oh, no worries.
That's been growing. I mean, as I've been doing YouTube more, there's been more people watching over there, but still it's like a majority of the people listen.
Great.
And I feel like the video stuff is really just for creating these short little cool sound bites that you can share online.
You should do
afterwards.
one all naked episode. People will start.
That's actually an amazing idea.
But just put the table like right here.
I don't know. That might be uncomfortable. It depends who my guest is on that day. You know.
I mean.
Maybe it could be like a nudist. Maybe that could be the thing.
Or like June, Mama June from Honey Boo Boo.
Is that a thing that she does? I'm not
no,
really
I just,
too familiar.
she recently lost a lot of weight. She might be down to like really rock her new bod on YouTube.
Embrace it. Mm-hmm. That's actually a great idea. Maybe it's not. I don't know. We could brainstorm about those ideas a little bit later on. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the work that you do right now. I'm going to give you a proper intro, but if you just tell me a little bit in your own words what it is that your work looks like these days.
So I made a transition a couple of years ago into like professional social media, which is a lot of strategy for big companies, sometimes just coming out with like, really what their content is going to look like in an arc over time, or what different campaigns to build community are going to look like. And then for some people, we're literally building the content, shooting it. Pretty much that. So sometimes it's photo, video stuff. Sometimes it's like spreadsheet life. But
Right. It seems like there's like a balance between the strategy in terms of like how you're executing it, which is really the most important part, and then actually the content creation.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean? So my girlfriend's actually, she is a strategist. I think I know what she does. She's a strategist, but it's like very specific in terms of like, she just does strategy and figures out like, say if you have a show, Mr. Robot, how is that going to be perceived by viewers? How do you market that and pitch that so then viewers really understand? They see out of home billboard, or they see a commercial and they get the essence and the feel for it. Like the strategy is what drives everything on that process. How does, as like a branding strategist in that role, how does that look in terms of strategy?
Yeah, so I usually have people narrow down like what are the 3 or 5 either messages or products or like things that you're trying to push or get across. Or if it's a personal brand as a person, like what are the 5 things that matter to you most that are worth sharing online? And then do like a fairly even build out in a calendar for the year. Like how often are you going to talk about you wanting The Rock to be on your show versus how often are you going to talk about minimalism, et cetera. And then from there, figuring out like what ways does your current audience like take in media the best, like do they want it to feel more editorial? Is it quick? Like how old or young are they? Kind of usually is a good feel for like how much content they're willing to take in, how brief they want it to be. And if they're men or women, like, every different generation is still kind of taking in content different. So then that kind of helps you figure out what you're talking about, what the format is. And then after that, it's just like, it sounds boring, but it's a lot of A/B testing to figure out what your community responds to and how to get them to engage as much as possible so that you're building a conversation and you're not just talking at people, which is what I feel like a lot of companies are getting stuck doing right now.
Yeah. And a lot of like independent entrepreneurs and Instagrammers. Hey guys, what's going on? Like it seems like a lot of the content is very much the same. It's like, this is what I'm doing right now. And it's like, I feel like what you're trying to do here is take a step back. And instead of like just kind of throwing stuff at a wall and just creating for creating's sake, because you just need to make content and fill up the pages, is to actually get a bird's eye view and say, all right, well, where do you want to take this thing? What direction do you want to head?
Yeah, and it is really different if you're like a first person or a third person type brand. Like, are you constantly filming yourself and speaking from an I, or is it a we? And are you like sourcing content from your listeners or from your followers and engaging it in that way? And I mean, I deal with both of those kind of clients, but sometimes it's stripping people down and making them more focused. Like if you're someone who does a ton of different things, but you're like, I have a client who's a yoga model, and it's like, dude, you're a cute redhead and people just want to see you do yoga and a sports bra every day. Like, don't post pictures of your dog. Like, no one wants to see what you eat for breakfast kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or there's people that like are only showing one thing, and it's like, whoa, you're actually like an amazing father, and you're actually like, you have this really cool like garden that you tend to, or whatever it is that you're like, people actually would love to see that side of your life and like maybe show more sides of it. So sometimes it's opening people up to realizing that different aspects of their life are really appealing and engaging for people, or sometimes it's like stripping them down to, here's one thing people love to hear from you.
Sure.
Maybe you have a personal account where you share stuff with your family and
right.
friends.
Sometimes
every day,
you might want to just split it up and keep things clean. And I think that part of being a creator is always experimenting, and it's always maybe trying and tweaking different things. And oftentimes you're going to want to say maybe that redheaded yoga instructor all of a sudden is like, you know what, I don't want to just do this. Maybe I want to branch out and start reviewing video games or something like that. And it's like, all right, well, how does that play into this? Is that something separate?
Just wear yoga clothes when you do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're going to come up with some amazing ideas on this episode. That right there is like $1 million idea.
No, and she is great. She's someone who is really multifaceted, but it's like, cool, but this platform is what's, maybe Instagram visually and health and fitness, like this is what that is for you, and maybe you grow in other ways on other platforms. It
seems like there's like an analytical side to what you do, and like the strategy side, and very thoughtful, but then obviously also the creative side. Is that what you first got interested in the creative side?
For sure.
When did that first start to take hold?
I started doing photography around like 14, 15. I was like an indie scene chick in North Carolina, like a real raging rock scene there. And yeah, just started shooting like live shows and things like that. And in high school and college, I shot a lot of people's headshots, like just to make money on the side. And then I started like, once I got into video at the end of college, I started like just kind of capturing my life. And I realized I don't have a lot of videos of me as a kid. I haven't seen any actually that I can recollect. And I love capturing like these little montage memories of my life and looking back on them. So I started just doing it that way for myself. And when I had something very accidentally go super viral, and then people, naturally are going to be like, can you do that twice? I was like, well, I can try to figure out how I did it.
Right.
Do it for other people. And then since then, it's been like around 75 brands that I've worked with in the last 2.5 years, trying to learn how to recreate the magic of virality, or intentionally how to grow things in a mass way online.
Sure. Those are definitely two very different challenges there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about specifically about that viral event that happened, which was pretty crazy. Was this 2015?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was March. So 3 years ago this month, which feels crazy. It feels like it was a lifetime ago, but it also feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah. And what happened?
I was a part of like a secret group on Facebook, like a private group of girls. And someone saw that a man was being made fun of on Reddit, and he didn't know it. His name wasn't tagged or anything. It was just a picture of a guy dancing. He looks really happy, and then a picture of him looking really down next to it. And the caption was, saw this specimen trying to dance. He stopped when we started laughing at him. And, he's like a really heavy set guy, but just has like the most joyful look on his face. And then you see this like really painful, just like shame in the second image. So a few people were like, what do you do? Like, do you find the guys who put it up and punish them? Or like, do you find the guy in the picture? Like, I don't know, send him flowers or something. And I was like, I would dance with that guy. Like, he's having a blast. So we created an invitation that I designed so quickly on an app that I misspelled a lot of words. Looking back on, to have something go viral and be like, she spelled sincerely wrong. And I was like, I still kind of have to look that word up, but there's so many E's and R's and L's.
It's like there's some words
that
I'm never going to get it.
So yeah, we sent it out, and I was literally just laying on the couch watching Grey's Anatomy, and all of a sudden it exploded. I did text it to a lot of celebrities and friends I know who have a big following, being like, we want to find this guy in this picture, and at that point we didn't really know what we wanted to do. We figured he was in America. He was not. But we were like, oh, it's probably a couple $100. We'll find him somewhere and fly him to LA and just go to a bar and dance. I don't know.
Yeah.
But really quickly, the city of LA was like, we'll pay for it. And the Coliseum was like, we'll host a party for 80,000 people. And Pharrell was like, I'll sing. And Moby's like, I'll DJ. And I was like, Moby?
What?
And Ellie Goulding said she'd sing. She didn't respond to emails after that, but she definitely said she would.
Wow.
Dita Von Teese was like, I'll do a dance. Monica Lewinsky wanted to come speak and did. Andrew WK. All these big people that you wouldn't even think have any relation to the world of body positivity or anti-bullying, especially anti-bullying in the world of grown adult men, because that's not even a thing. No one talks about adult men being bullied online.
Sure. Yeah.
So everyone just came out of the woodworks, because I think it was just a human story, and we were just the viral story 1 week after the white dress, blue dress thing.
Was that which dress is it?
Yeah, that was 1 week before us. So we were
the
trending topic the next week.
Right, you could put a timestamp on it. Be like, oh, okay, yeah. And actually, I think I do remember hearing about this and seeing it, because I definitely was a heavy Redditor at the time.
Yeah, and it was the top trending topic on Facebook and Twitter in the world for 2 days. And we ended up it was one of the Today Show's top 10 stories of the year, and Sean, the man who we ended up finding in the photo, spoke at Twitter for being that was at Twitter's annual gala for this was how the internet could be used for good, and this was our number one thing of the year. It got really crazy attention fast, in a way you could never imagine. I woke up the next day and Good Morning America and Ellen were both so what are you doing this afternoon?
Which
is weird.
And sure. And what do you do in that moment? I imagine there's a bit of panic. There's a bit of, excitement. Panic. There's also what the hell do I do now?
Yeah, I jumped into a lot of action. Luckily, when it's internet, it's like, say 1 million people look at something you did. It's hard to imagine what 1 million people look like. You know what I mean? So it doesn't, I don't know if you really understand how big it is in that moment. But immediately we were also like, our names weren't on anything and no one really knew who the people were looking for this guy. So luckily my dad's in business and he immediately was like, get the domain, like copyright the hashtag, like get the email going to like filter everything that's coming in. And the first 5 days were just, I literally didn't sleep or eat for like 5 days. You can really run on adrenaline and crash really hard like a week later. But yeah, that first week was so hectic. I don't wish unexpected virality on anyone for that reason. It's like you have to just call out for work and be like, I'm sorry, I got 15,000 emails this morning and I don't know what to do.
Right. And there is an element of preparedness that you would like to have heading into something like that.
For sure. We were shooting a music video for me because I was still like a singer-songwriter at the time that weekend. With a song that I had like already written about being nice to people. And so that kind of worked in the sense that it was like, well, we already have a video team coming this weekend. We already have like 50 girls showing up to my house. We already have, so like some stuff was luckily very coincidentally in place. But yeah, we could have never expected it to go like that. And once we were able to set a delayed date, the party ended up being like 2 months after the campaign. That gave us more time to just be like, cool, we have 60 days or 90 days to like plan this out and plan this giant party for this man. That ended up being insane. He threw the opening pitch at a Dodgers game. We had a private picnic lunch like in the center of an NFL stadium. It was so much more than the party. We went to the Rockefeller Center and like he danced on stage with Meghan Trainor and was interviewed by like Matt Lauer and Carson Daly. Like it was a very big whirlwind. And it just took a lot of planning in that moment. But I didn't get to do as much of the creative as I would have wanted to looking back in how I captured it, because I just didn't have time. And that's where I think now, instead of people wanting to just stumble into something blowing up, like I made something cool. It's like, I want to get millions of views. It's like to have a really intentional plan for like how you're building buzz and how you're building community around it. And then what you do with it afterwards. Like we accidentally fundraised a ton of money. We started to GoFundMe to get $500 and like 75,000 came in. And it was like, cool, well, we're not a nonprofit yet. Like, what do we do? Like you don't know what to do in those situations. And I'd imagine that a lot of people that get caught in virality, like once it's out of the news cycle, that they really struggle with like picking up the pieces afterwards.
Yeah. And I just, because I do want to talk about like what you would do differently, but a lot of times it's like, you're right that you can never expect it. And like, like obviously it's like, yeah, you want to prepare for it. But a lot of times the people that do go viral are those that don't have an audience, that are maybe just getting started out, maybe been doing it for a couple of years, but like there's not much consistency there. And all of a sudden one thing just takes off.
Or it's a 12-year-old on Vine.
Right. And it's like, well, how the hell are they prepared to be able to, maybe they shouldn't like get too caught up with it and too swept up with the moment. Like, I feel like you're right when you say like, I hope certain people like, I don't really wish an unexpected virality to happen to anybody, especially of like a kid or somebody that's just like so unprepared, that's trying to just figure out what the hell is going on in their life and their own small circle of the world. And now all of a sudden they're on this massive platform.
And like we were asking for it. We didn't expect it at this level, but we were looking for him. But this guy like didn't even have social media. Like he got 1 million phone calls the next morning. Now he's like one of my dearest friends. We like visit him in London all the time. He comes here quite a lot, but that's where he lives, is in England. Absolutely the nicest man on earth. Also, he could have been a pedophile. Could have been a real creep. We didn't know.
Oh, it could have went really bad.
Could have been really bad, He could have just shown up and we could have been like, wow, you're a meth head. This is weird. The world wants to throw you a party, Mr. Meth. Luckily, he's hands down the nicest human on the face of the planet. It could not have happened to a better person. But yeah, he didn't ask for it.
Was he actually bullied? Like, did he see that, or that was one of those things that was like kind of going on behind him that he didn't really know about it?
I mean, he knew he was being laughed at. Whenever we ask him about that night too, he's like, we were drinking quite a bit. I was bouncing around quite a lot. He was watching football or soccer. And so it's like that moment didn't impact him at this insane level that like the photograph ended up having the ability to like impact the world longer term. But yeah, luckily he was down. He was like, as long as this is for a good cause. And me and him made an agreement very early on that no one would make a penny. So that was the other thing too, is then people think like, oh, you're on TV all the time, you're making all this money, you're selling. We were like, every penny went to charity. We all lost money because we took time off work, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, he was great.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a positive intention behind the whole thing, and it wasn't just trying to get attention for attention's sake. And I think that's what's important too, is because a lot of people are trying to get attention and are like yelling for it and spamming people and tagging 100 of your friends on Facebook, and it's like that's not the way you do it.
Yeah.
Like, well,
that's real tacky.
Yeah.
It's tacky, friend.
Oh my God, it's so tacky. I'm like, well, this is not going to work, dude. It is. I don't think it's ever worked in the history of the world. Maybe like twice they saw two people do it and all of a sudden it took off, like a chain email that was forwarded from your grandma. But like other than that, I feel like you just got to put out really great work that's meaningful, that other people are going to care about.
Yeah.
It's like, why would somebody want to share this? There needs to be a reason behind it.
When I started, nothing I ever did, like any of my most successful campaigns or accounts, none of those things were about getting numbers ever. Occasionally now when I work with companies, they really need to see numbers because of the like weird corporate chain of people that want to see the reports that I'm sure they don't look at, but like need to be really designed beautifully. But everything was like, oh, was me just wanting to like help people capture what they were doing better. I learned that I had a weird knack for making things look cool online. Which is a weird thing to say you do professionally, but the elevator pitch of what we do is that if you're doing something cool in real life and you don't know how to make yourself look cool online, you end up like hurting your product or hurting your brand or your band or your company or your nonprofit, whatever it is. Putting up really low quality stuff, when you're making really good quality stuff in real life, just because digital, isn't your thing, it ends up hurting you. And so I was like, somehow I make my life look way cooler online than it is in real life. So maybe that's a skill I could share with other people. And it was less about numbers and more like, I want people to authentically see how great your work is online. Yeah. Because I think it's great in real life. And that's why we only work with companies who we believe in real life. And
I think a lot of times there's like a negative, at least these days, when a word gets used so much that it loses its meaning, people tend to be like, I don't like that word. I don't use that word. Like branding. It's like, oh, I don't like that word. That's just, but it's like, it's what it represents and what it stands for. And like, yeah, okay, don't use the word branding, whatever. I don't care what like vocabulary you use, but like how you present yourself on the internet, online, how you present your business, it's so important. It's like, and some people, maybe it's like kind of almost a postmodern approach. Like I don't want to put labels or do anything like that, but it's, you know what, if I call myself the minimalist filmmaker, well, that means something. If people have like even if I call myself a filmmaker, there's like an image to your head versus a videographer or whatever. Like, I feel like you have to be very intentional about those decisions you make and when you're putting yourself on the internet.
It's how 90% of people you work with or even like socialize with are going to first be introduced to you at this point. And for a lot of companies, that's like the only interaction they'll have with you. Like if you're selling t-shirts now, a handful of people come into your store, but the majority of them are going to buy it online. Like that sometimes is like your only path of communication with whether it's like fans, followers, whoever, whatever your audience is that you're trying to build or the market is that you're trying to sell to. Or just the cool thing is also just campaigns that aren't even, it's not about money and it's not about selling something. It's like, I'm really trying to push a message. And I did that branding strategy recently for like a new brand campaign that Mark Zuckerberg is backing, which Lord knows why they needed me as their strategist. I was like, you seem pretty good at making things go big yourself. But sometimes just these campaigns that people are able to fund where they're like, we're not trying to sell anything. We literally are just trying to make a change. And whether that's something as obvious as like a Black Lives Matter type thing, you know what I mean? Where it's like, we're just trying to spread a message and change a perception. And we're using the internet as the vehicle to do that.
Yeah, I think that should be everybody's intention. When they're trying to put something out, it shouldn't be bottom line, make money, make dollar, whatever it is. Yeah. Like if you write a book, it shouldn't be, I'm trying to be on the New York Times bestseller list and sell 10,000 copies in the first day. It should be, I want people to read this book because I think it'll help them and it'll change their lives.
Yeah.
And because people can sense when you're being anxious and you're just trying to, they know what your intentions are.
Yeah. And a lot of times people will seek out these like titles or status markers that like really don't matter. So it's like, you can trend for a day in like a really small category of iTunes, for example, like if you were like, yeah, I'm the #1 podcast for minimalist men in California,
I'm crushing it in that category.
But then your Instagram bio is like #1 podcaster, you know what I mean? Like something that's like these really vague,
award winning.
Yeah.
I mean, I use that just because like you said, it helps to add validity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when anybody can say it, does it actually mean anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I won Pop Album of the Year for the LA Music Awards, but like it's not the Grammys.
Yeah.
It does look cool on the wall, but
Yeah.
like it's the LA Music Awards. It's not
Right.
the Grammys. Or like I've done a TEDx talk. But it's not a TED talk.
TED. Yeah. Like the people that say, I did a TED talk. Did you do a TED talk or did you do a TEDx talk?
Yeah.
Because there's like a big difference between the two of them.
I used to be a part. It's actually where I met Matt. My boyfriend, not you, Matt,
Yeah.
but at this writers conference, and they always used to tease each other. It'd be like, Emmy award-winning so-and-so, a guy in the back would be like, you got a daytime Emmy. It was like a children's show.
Right. I think
They tease each other.
in that same vein, it's a little bit different, but a lot of people will say I'm aspiring. And I think from the other side, don't say you're aspiring. If you're a filmmaker, just say you're a film. Like, it doesn't take much to be a filmmaker and to call yourself a filmmaker. And you're never going to know when that line blurs. Because there's going to be this really weird, year where you're go from aspiring to professional or from amateur to a professional. Yeah. And you might as well just call yourself a filmmaker and then fake it until you make it.
Or be selective. If you see like a profile account that's, like I'm a videographer, photographer, motivator, muse, chef, barista, public figure. And it's like sometimes like just stick with something long enough to be good at it and do a million other things. Like I technically have been a professional photographer or videographer for the last 10, 15 years and very much so in the last 2-3 years. But I don't lead with like that as my title or add it to this long list, like lead with the thing that you're representing that you do the strongest, but continue to build up a million other skill sets in the background.
I do that stuff with documentaries that I make, and when you put the credits, and I've seen some, you've seen the independent docs and the independent films where the director is the producer, is the editor, is the colorist, and like they give themselves credit for everything, and I'm like, you're making this look not very good for yourself.
It'd be cool if it was like a film by Matt Diavelli.
Boom, and that's it. Or I usually just do directed, produced, and then that's it.
Yeah.
For a very specific reason. And like if I colored it, I won't do colorist, I won't do editor, edited by, because it's also about what you want, how you want people to perceive you and the kind of work that you want to do in the future.
Yeah.
It's like I want to continue directing films, so I want people to know that I directed this, but then it's just going to water it down if you add every other title to it. It's also going to make you seem kind of like egotistical, right? Like
I think it just makes it seem like you don't have any friends.
Right, like you couldn't get a couple people to help out. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Say an individual is starting to put stuff out online. We're talking about like how to actually position ourselves and talk about ourselves online. How important is it in the beginning? Because when you're first starting, right, that's probably the point where you're going to get the most friction, where you're not going to be able to actually keep going. How much time should people be spending on the bio, the photos, and all this stuff versus the actual content that's going to be a part of their rise?
I think your actual like profile, your mini description, whatever that you're putting out on social, like that can change and evolve over time. I'd say always like keep it simple, more than anything else, and focus on the content. And know that like it's better to put out consistent good content than like everyday mediocre content or like once in a blue moon fantastic content, if that makes sense.
Dude, 100%. And I've been talking about this a lot because like a lot of people are trying to push creators to make and release every day, and it's like the vlogging went viral and it's everybody's vlogging. But when you have 5 to 10,000 people vlogging their day to day, going to the grocery store, it's not going to be that interesting, and the content's not going to be that engaging.
For sure. And and the algorithms change all the time. So I'll always start with new clients that are like, yeah, we should be posting, 3 to 5 times a day. And I was like, maybe like on Twitter in 2010, and also know that every platform is really different. So like the way that you're, Twitter is a place to like create and join conversations, like start and join conversations in my mind. And a lot of companies use Twitter like, because we're on Facebook and Instagram, we just want to push stuff out but they're like not interacting with anyone else on there. But like that's a platform you can maybe post on multiple times a day. But know that like you need to keep track with how these algorithms are shifting, because maybe it was okay to post a few more times a day, but over time like people follow way more people. And
I think that's a good point.
Then you get too much crap in your feed and in your timeline. Yeah. That's why they created these algorithms. And I get it. It sucks. I follow a lot of beauty bloggers because I love them, but they're always like, go comment on 10 of my recent posts so you can see more of my things in the algorithm. And it's this weird like begging for it. And I'm like, no, but that's the point of the algorithm, is not to like punish or hurt people. It's not actually a bad thing. It's like, originally when Facebook was just you and like 20 of your friends in college, you wanted to see everything they were posting. But now you have 4,000 friends, and if you had to see every meal and baby photo and bad song lyric and Throwback Thursday posted by all 4,000 people, you would stop using these platforms. So it tracks your behavior. If you like your mom's stuff, you're going to keep seeing your mom's stuff. And if you don't, you won't. And so you're going to continue being seen by the people who want to see you, by the people who engage in your stuff. And that means if you're someone who's taking in stuff all the time, like interact with the people you like. If you like Matt D'Avella's stuff, like comment on it, you know what I mean? And if you don't, like you're going to start seeing less of it. And I think that that's a really reasonable thing to have happen. Yeah. And so that's why it's so important to create content that is worth engaging with, that asks a question, that creates a conversation. And that you're interacting back with people, like when they're asking you a question or commenting on your stuff, that you go look at their stuff and you like interact with like-minded people in your community. And that's, I think, the most authentic way to build any brand online right now.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important to always make sure you're putting out quality.
Yeah.
So if you put out one quality piece once a month, but then every other post is shit, that one post is probably not going to get seen by that many people. Yeah. But if you're putting out one quality post every week versus every single day putting shit out, it's probably going to reflect better. Your audience is going to be like, this is the thing too, like whenever I'm trying to create a YouTube video, I'm like, I really want to make this be really good, because I want my audience to know that every time they watch a video of mine, it's got a certain standard of quality. I'm not just going to put up like me going to the grocery store, and to be very thoughtful and intentional about it. And that's something that I think more and more people are going to start realizing, as obviously, like we've been talking about how just saturated media is and social media is in general. We're far past that now, but it seems like, I don't know, it seems like I see a couple people now that are being really thoughtful, really intentional, that are doing it really well, but then you have a lot of the people that are just coming up and starting out that are just doing the vlogs and doing the everyday content. And
these platforms adjust for that, you know what I mean? So it's like Instagram stories is something that's like, maybe it's a competition with Snapchat, but it's like, cool, here's a way where you can post like all the little things all the time that aren't going to like suck up people's made feeds if they're not into that from you. Yeah. And like utilizing those things.
Yeah. That's a great point. We were talking a little bit about the virality and what you would do differently today. And you actually had an experience and a chance to do it a little bit differently with your friend Terrence. That's right?
Yeah.
So really maybe that's a good context, because going into this experience, you kind of knew someone was about to pop off. We better be prepared for this. Like,
exactly.
So maybe just give background.
So we had no idea in 2015, that Dancing Man was going to happen, that, that was going to blow up and become viral, and truly, like, literally viral. But we expected it recently. I have a good friend. I've been friends with her about 10 years through music. He's lived with me on and off throughout the years. Auditioned for The Voice. And he is incredible, and I like don't say that lightly. I mean, like, humble brag, I have degrees in music. Like, it's not just like, oh, he could sing good. It's like, yeah. No, literally, I'm very aware that he is so much better than everyone else in the world.
Yeah.
And he's got such a cool look and a great story and a wonderful heart. And so we knew that The Voice was going to push his story. I knew that, you know, all the judges were going to turn around. I knew he got picked. And so when that episode came to air, we already knew like how to get all of his social media feeds ready and his tagging. And
how much time do you have?
He auditioned in October, and the episode didn't air till like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But you can already see like the level. You know, we were prepared to like help him handle all of the engagement that he was getting, like how to funnel it, how to already have Instagram highlight tabs where he was like highlighting when fans were doing, you know, reaction videos and all this stuff. And I gotta say, like, he's doing way better with engagement than all the other people on the show. And part of that is because he's a good product. You know what I mean? Like, he's a cool looking, nice guy who's hella talented. But right now everyone on the show is. So, but his engagement levels are like comments in the hundreds, whereas other people that are trending on the show are getting like 5 and 6. Where his video on NBC's page was getting like 2.8 million views, and some of the other audition ones were still only getting 20 to 40,000. And these are still people that also got through and are on Team Alicia and like should be realistically at the same level. And he didn't have a big following going in. He had less than like 3,000 followers going in. But we knew ahead of time, like, what is your look? How often are you posting? How can we make sure that you're engaging and answering everybody? And that you also have time to like enjoy it and like respond to all your family's text messages and all your friends that
how many texts did you say he got like the day after?
Hundreds. It was like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we even captured, and this is what I wish I had been able to do with Dancing Man. You know, I captured on video, like high quality on these same cameras we're using today, like him watching his first blind audition and his friends all watching at a party that night, and got it done and online within 1 hour. Like, he was still at the bar celebrating when like this was up. Right. And NBC called and they were like, did we make that video for you? Do we have that footage to put online? He's like, nope, my friends made it, and they can sign releases if you want. So like literally NBC was like, they did that in 1 day? That would have taken our team day. Like, they literally thought they shot it.
Yeah.
And we were like, no, we just had it ready to go. And made sure that he had a team behind him so that he could enjoy it, so that he could eat and sleep in ways that I didn't when my stuff blew up. That he could focus more just on what he needed to do for him. And the reason you do that is because you want to maintain an audience, so that no matter what happens on this show, he can still like create his own content, create his own music, moving forward, you know? Like I'm friends with the guys from NSYNC, and I was in Lance's wedding, like real close to them. And it blows my mind that like he has less than 500,000 followers on Instagram, even though they're the #1 like selling band of all time.
Of all time.
Because they weren't big when social media happened.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
and even people, I have friends who got very far in The Voice season 1, and same thing, like they didn't have Instagram or YouTube at that time with them. So it's like making sure that you know, we set up a website for him. We're collecting people's email addresses who like what he's doing right now. So while he has this 15 minutes of spotlight, that we can retain information to connect him to his fans after this, you know? Because American Idol creates stars. That show, they sign contracts, they own you for 20 years. Like, they create recording artists. The Voice doesn't do that. It's episodic television. It's individual storylines each week. So how can we make sure that if he can get 100,000, 1 million fans in this year while he's on TV all the time, that he owns their email addresses, that he owns that following, so that even if he doesn't win The Voice, or, you know, does something different, that when he writes a book or he releases a Christmas album, like, he can let his fans know. Like, so I think just preparing yourself to capture contact information from your fans in like a non-aggressive, abrasive way.
Sure. And I always go back to Seth Godin. He always talks about Permission Marketing was a book that he wrote. Like, he was way ahead of the game. He wrote this in like 2001 or 2000, before social media. He's like, yeah, this thing, the internet is, I think it's going to actually be pretty successful. But he was talking about, like, make sure you have permission from your audience to actually talk to them. Don't just spam people with emails, and do it in a tasteful way that they really are, they're accepting and they want to actually hear from you.
And doing this side of it for him, what was really different for us was I was in the thick of it because I was managing all the content and the emails and the comments, and it's what pushed me away from wanting to do music. It's what pushed me away from wanting to be the face of a campaign ever again. I mean, I rarely even would do an interview now where I'm being captured like this. I did Good Morning Germany recently, and I was like, only if it never airs in America and it's not online.
Yeah, because there's so much. It drains you, and there's a lot of thought and stress that goes into these interviews.
But it's really, I saw the comments. I saw the feedback. Yeah. And even though 100 million people supported us, there were 10,000 assholes in there, and they're vocal, and they can reach you just as quickly as your parents can online. And I had to see that, and it made me really pessimistic, and it made me think that the world was full of jerks. And sometimes I'd look at their profile and I'd be like, you're a 9-year-old? Commenting on my YouTube telling me to kill myself? Are you kidding me? And even though I didn't believe them, you know what I mean? Even if they were saying things like, oh, you guys are this or that, it's like, well, you're wrong. I'm self-aware. I feel good about what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it made me I was like a hermit for a year after it. And so one of the things I'm doing for Terrence or for other clients now is protecting them from that, in the sense that yes, he doesn't have to look at as much in the thick of it, and he can stay a little bit more positive and focused on the art that he's creating. Because those people are always going to be out there.
Yeah, and this is something that I wanted to talk to you about, because I'm into this kind of deep work mentality. There's a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, which is you kind of schedule your time in, and you don't get distracted by social media throughout the day. So really plan and make sure that you're actually you're doing it right, and then don't get too caught up in emails. Don't reply to every single one. Don't reply to every single comment. And that's something that I try to do. It's a double-edged sword, like you said. And when you're an independent creator, when you don't have somebody I can't afford to hire you to manage this stuff. Obviously down the road that would be an amazing to be able to do. So hey, make sure I don't see these idiots, because as much as you don't want it to affect you, it does a little bit. It's got a little bit of a sting, but also it takes a lot of time to go through. It's amazing to be able to hear from people that have been affected by the work that you've done, and that stuff is you really want to be able to see that.
Yeah.
But I have trouble balancing the two, and making sure I'm not spending too much time on it, not seeing these shitty negative comments, and then also making sure that I'm still creating and I'm not actually wasting too much time, because the algorithm, as you say, a lot of times adding comments and having that discussion online actually does help, and it will actually boost the visibility. Yeah. So how do you balance these worlds as an independent creator?
It's interesting. Now, on my personal pages, that have my name on it, I don't build a lot of conversation with the public. I don't want that on something that has my face on it anymore. So for any client that would be someone like you, for example, I actually do recommend, if you can afford it, it's a lot cheaper than content creation. And we have team members for our company that do it for people, for bands who can't keep up with it when they're on the road, for example, is if you can, hiring someone to do your community management, to be the filter of weaving out the bad stuff and sending you the really good feedback or the personal questions, is actually probably a lot more affordable than you think. And so it is worth looking into. Even if someone's just doing it 1 hour a day, it can be really easy work. But otherwise, it just takes a lot of it takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of tough skin to put yourself out there. And a side note that is not an answer to that question, but it reminds me of it. I mentioned earlier that Monica Lewinsky spoke at the party and has been great with us. And we were able to visit her this summer in London with Sean. She wrote a the forward to a book, and they asked me to contribute a few pages to it about cyberbullying and like about the same thing. The book's called Shame Nation, and I wrote a bit about my experience, but it's almost like a textbook now. So it's like if you actually are going into virality, or if you do have a very large following, it's a book worth reading in the sense of like, when is it just people being jerks? When is it actually a crime what someone is doing to you? You know, if they are like, if someone puts your personal information out online, you know, or they threaten you in ways like, where do your rights actually fall in this? The part that always stood out to me in that book was someone saying you don't even have to have the internet to be cyberbullied. There's dozens of cases right now of actually elderly people in nursing homes where like nurses' aides and stuff have like taken embarrassing nude photos of them, and they've gotten caught, where it's like, yeah, your 89-year-old grandmother might be getting cyberbullied online right now, and she would have no idea. She doesn't even know what Twitter is. And so that's a cool book that's like, if you're going into it, to read it and understand. So if you do feel like, okay, I have a tough skin, I'm ready to read these comments, I feel reassured and loved by the people who matter to me in my life, but when are people crossing the line, and what is the best defense too? Because it talks a lot of times too about like, when is it actually best to respond? When is it best to just delete it and block the person? You know, sometimes if you're a company and someone says like, oh, your products are crap, I bought this coffee cup from you and the handle broke right off, you should respond to that publicly. You know, you should address those issues. But if you're a person and they're like, hey, I don't like you because I think you're blah, 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 then is it easier or more appropriate to just delete it? Like when do you actually engage in those conversations?
How do you feel about that from like an ethical and moral perspective of deleting comments? Because like this takes being self-aware, but what if it's actually a criticism? I put out a video and I'm talking about creating consistent content or whatever, and it's like somebody actually disagrees with me and says, actually, I don't think that you're right. I think you actually should be making and releasing content every single day. If I delete that, I don't think that's a good way to be a creator.
No, I'm super down to have conversations and to take criticism from someone who's coming to you from a polite standpoint. You know what I mean? But one thing to remember is like, this profile, like that's yours. Like someone would be like, oh, he took away my freedom of speech. And I'm like, no, this is, it's like, this is my dinner table. And like, I didn't invite you into my home to talk shit about the meal I just cooked for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, there's that level of like, no, actually, this is my platform. And especially if you have a big following, you're now getting eyes put on you from like this platform and following that I built. And like, no, you don't have a right to be nasty in that space. So sometimes if it's really harsh, but it sounds like it's coming from maybe a misled standpoint, and it is something that's worth deleting because it's attracting more negative attention than good, sometimes I'll just DM the person, you know, and actually engage in a conversation if it seems like they're down to have that talk. Sometimes it's just being really playful about it. The negative feedback that we have been getting, if any, about Terrence is his hair. So he has dreadlocks and he has them like twisted into a cool bun. And there's been a handful of like Midwestern soccer mom types that are like, he can really sing, but his hair looks like a butthole. What? And so he just responded and he's like, it's inspired by like, you know, ancient African tribal hair, Wakanda forever. And
wow.
it ends up being like lighthearted.
Right. You can't, it can only affect you as much as you will let it. And sometimes that's why I'll just do like an upside down smiley face at people who like give me a nasty comment, or I'll love heart it. Because I think the people like, and people might say, well, you should really just be, you know, spreading love to those that are being positive to you. But I'm like, really, the people that need the love the most are these ones that are being negative. Like, what's going on, right? Yeah, what's going on in your life that like and like if you're negative back to them, if you're snappy back at them, you're like, well, fuck you. Then all of a sudden, it's just gonna unwind, and like that person is it's gonna feed right into their ego. Yeah,
it spirals, and they just want attention. Yeah. They really just want attention. And I'm a firm believer that hurt people. And if it's a child, like if I can look and see it's someone under 16 or like under 15, I sometimes have like then clicked to find their mom on Facebook and been like, do you know your 10-year-old son is like telling people that they're fat and ugly and they should die? Like, you know, maybe you didn't realize. you're a crappy parent. So I'm here to let you know.
Yeah.
No, like sometimes when it's kids involved, it's way more sensitive and they don't understand the level of what they're doing. And that is worth like finding a way to have a private conversation. But yeah, I think if constructive criticism is very different from like hate messaging.
Yeah.
And learning how to decipher that is important as a creative, and like learning how to take that negative feedback. And it probably hurts you most when you're worried that it's true. Mm-hmm. You know?
Right. Yeah, if they actually tap into some insecurities that you have,
for sure,
then all of a sudden, even if you pretend like, yeah, that doesn't hurt, then you kind of, it's in the back of your mind.
Yeah,
like,
which is why like it can sound egotistical, but like the people who are like, oh, you can't sing, I'd be like, no, I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those comments never hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like when you talk about what someone looks like, that then they look in the mirror and they're like, do I have a double chin? Like, how many chins do I have? I thought I just had one.
Yeah.
Then that's the stuff that like you take personally.
Mm-hmm. Is there any merit to, I think this is what you're going to disagree with. This is how I've been living my life. Okay. But you probably just, because this is your job. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there is an element and a degree to be so good the algorithm doesn't matter. Where if I just keep putting out dope shit and like making videos that are really engaging and that pull people in, then it's not going to matter if I respond to every comment in the first hour. That's going to boost the algorithm a little bit. If over the long run, if I'm just keep consistently making great content, that's going to be more important, or overall it's not going to matter to me because I'm happy with like whatever audience I get from that.
Well, yeah, it isn't that it doesn't matter. It's that like you're on top of it. And it depends on what success is for you in the sense of like, are you getting 1 million likes? Yeah, but do you have 100 million followers or only 1% liking it? So it depends on like when you like what your level of success is. Or like what the standard is that you're looking to hit, I think.
But I guess that's the thing is that, so I just hit 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, which was like,
congrats.
Thank you so much. Huge milestone. And it happened in 2 months. And I was like, didn't expect it, but I'm like, holy shit, that just came out of nowhere. And then I see this guy, Peter McKinnon. I don't know if you heard of him. He's an amazing YouTuber, just unbelievable videos. And he, in the past year, has gotten 1.8 million. And like, but like just so good. But then all of a sudden I go from this high to this low where I'm like, well, I'm not Peter. Well, I didn't get 1.8 million in a year. Like I've been doing this for a year and a half and I haven't gotten.
Well, you're not Peter, but you're also not Richard, and he only has 3 subscribers.
Exactly. But that's the thing. And that's a problem, is that when we're, I think, comparing ourselves to other people, we can get trapped, even if we're in a unconventional path. We're a filmmaker, we're not a 9-to-5er, you can get trapped in the rat race.
Yeah.
And you can get trapped in that.
I think it's just, if the goal is not numbers, I think it's important to have a really specific idea of what success looks like to you. So taking it back one step and then answering that is that when I was doing music professionally and I had gone to school with it, I went to like jazz arts high school, I went to, college for it, came out here, was in a band and did the awards and the TEDx talks and all those things we mentioned. Yeah. But I wasn't happy with like the lifestyle attached to it. I realized I didn't want any kind of personal fame. After experiencing accidental virality, I realized I didn't like eating dinner at midnight after shows and like being on the road. So I asked myself at the core, like, what do I like about what I get to do every day? And how can I do that in another field that has a better quality of life? So I was like, okay, at the root of it all, you think when you're a kid, like, I want to be a singer, I want to be famous, I want to be Britney Spears, or in my case, like, I want to be Beyonce, which was just not realistic for me. So
that's what I wanted to be when I was young.
So we all wanted to be Beyonce. So when you hit that point in life, we all hit where you realize you're not Beyonce.
Right.
You wake up every day and you're like, I'm still not Beyonce. I'm still not Beyonce. I was like, okay, well, I like being creative. I like telling stories. I like being able to, have pink hair and tattoos, and it doesn't matter. And waking up without an alarm clock, just like when I want to each day, and all of these things. So I was like, okay, I like those things. How can I do them in a different field? And ironically, like helping brands tell stories fulfilled a lot of those same things for me. And so then it was like, okay, well then what's my idea of success? And for me, it was like making, not wanting a mega mansion and stuff. I have a bit of a minimalist in me too, but it was like, okay, I want to make enough money that I live comfortably and I can spend a shit ton of my time in the national parks because that's like where my real passion lies. And so success for me wasn't about, like, even on my personal page, isn't about having 1 million followers or having 50% engagement, which is, I don't think anyone has that, not even Beyonce. Forgive me, B. But they, for me, it was like, okay, well then I just want to create a page that is enough of a calling card that I get hired for work I feel good about, that pays for my life, and then like that feels good, and I don't need to beat an algorithm. And like that's how I'm choosing to use my creative platform right now, is like it's more like a living portfolio of my work. It's a calling card of my work, and it's like a representation of what I stand for, which is just capturing joy and building community.
Right.
And so you may not need to beat the algorithm. You may not need 1.8 million followers. Matt Diavella may max out at 51,000, and you may do everything in life you want to do and like make all the money you need to make to live the life you need to live and be really happy.
I mean, my favorite thing about that is just the redefining and trying to figure out what success is. A lot of times early on in life, we get a little bit led astray and we kind of are pulled into somebody else's idea of what success is. And then it takes kind of experience and maybe pursuing something or having this realization that, you know what, actually, why am I going after all that stuff just because I was told or just because whatever? Those pressures, they will never go away, in the sense that we're always going to be seeing these images and we're going to see the Peters of the world and we're going to be like, oh, I want that. I want what he has. But then you have to just continually remind yourself and be like, well, you know what? Actually, no, that's not what I want. I actually love the work I do every single day. And that's the most important part.
Exactly.
Is if I can wake up every day and make videos and make a living doing that, holy shit, how lucky am I?
And know that making a pivot in your career is like not an end all be all. So if you grew up and you wanted to be a lawyer because you wanted to like try cases in court, it's like, 2% of lawyers are like court lawyers, like, you're probably gonna be like writing contracts for like prescription companies or something. And if you wanted to be a cop because you wanted to like capture the bad guys, like you're probably gonna be writing parking tickets and doing paperwork. And even if you wanted to be a teacher and inspire children, you're gonna have this crazy amount of like procedure to what you do, and you're not gonna get to be as creative in how you work with the children as you thought. And so a lot of times the career you've aspired your whole life to get to, the 10% of it you wanted is great, but the 90% that you never knew came with it sucks. And it's okay to make a big pivot, and it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It means that like you realize that the quality of life that comes with that identity may suck for you. Or it may be really different than it was 20 years ago when you first wanted to be that.
It takes so much courage to be able to do that. Like imagine a teacher that's been doing it for 5-10 years, that went to college for it. They feel so committed, pot committed, that they put all this time and energy into it. And then now to switch up and do something entirely different. Actually, Joel P. West, who's a composer, a brilliant composer. He's so talented, but he was a teacher. And I think he actually, it was maybe a year that he did it. Some people might be more, but he went to school for it. He did all this stuff. And like most people definitely would stick around for much longer for the paycheck, for whatever, just the comfort and the security of knowing you have a job. And then moving towards tenure. Few people would give that up, but he was like, you know what, this is as great as it is for a lot of people. I don't really enjoy this. So he just stepped out and just struggled, to make it as a musician.
Don't get stuck in a life that sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, like you can choose to change your path at any given time. So it's like if the job that you have to maintain to keep your like big house sucks, then like work at Starbucks and get an apartment you love. You know what I mean? Like you can downsize and change, and you can ask for help. Like if you're in a partnership, it doesn't need to be 50-50. Sometimes it's going to be 90-10. Sometimes you're going to give your all, and sometimes you're going to need them to pull the weight. And it's okay to like ask for that help and to be the one that needs the support sometimes. But or realize that you can transition within an industry, So I have a lot of friends who went out to be teachers and didn't like it and ended up, working for textbook companies to like, oh, I actually want to change what kind of information is going into schools all over the country. Or now I am a principal because I can actually make more of the changes I thought I wanted. And they never grew up thinking they wanted to be that. I'm really like clearly stuck in the teacher mindset right now. But yeah, same thing. Or you wanted to be a professional singer and you actually want to be now like a music director, or you're just going to be a songwriter, you know, because you realize like that's where your strength lies. And then you don't have to do all the other crap and you walk down the street without paparazzi bothering you, whatever it is. And sometimes those behind the scenes careers that are actually like the supporting roles in the career you thought you wanted make more money and have a more stable life.
Yeah. Sometimes
being the director is a way better life than being the star of the film.
100%.
You know?
And that leads to a good segue to this week's audience question from Gustavo.
What's up, Gustavo?
Gustavo's got a question here about, let me pull this cable out. He's got a question that's really related to experimenting. And this is like, I called you a Swiss Army knife at the beginning because like you're like a photographer, filmmaker, brand strategist, content creator. Like you've got about 100 different titles.
Yeah.
So he's kind of wondering how to go about pursuing different interests.
Cool. Hey Matt, my name is Gustavo. I'm a student at OSU studying digital communications. And my question for you is, how do you diversify your knowledge and having multiple interests, but at the same time remain on the same path of the creative field that you picked? So I started my creative journey doing videos, and I got really involved in that and made some money from that. But lately, I've been really focusing a lot, or I guess spending more time doing photography, graphic design, and motion graphics. So my question, I guess, really is do you think it's better to focus on one thing? Or is it okay to diversify in multiple areas? And if you do diversify, how do you manage to have your time divided into different things and still produce good quality content? Thanks a lot.
All right, Hope. So what do you think as somebody
who's... That's a good
who's,
question.
Yeah, multi-talented.
So I think the main way that I do that, and it works for my personality because... I would get bored in a 9-to-5. I would get bored if I was doing just one thing, like super redundant, is sometimes rather than having like 10 clients a week that you're designing a logo for, if you can create a lot of brand trust, if you can create like really good relationships with companies, that you end up being able to do multiple things for them. Some that are definitely your strong suit you led with, and others that are like kind of the supplemental things. You can, and this is probably like the later end of this answer, is that you can have like 2 clients a week instead of 10 that you're doing more for, that enables you to like try out and work out your skills in different ways. With learning them, I just found ways to do it in my own personal daily life and for friends for free at the beginning. Sure. So I worked during the week, even when I was just doing music. And then on the weekends, I'd, get girlfriends in the car and go to Joshua Tree and been like, let's take photos, and like, oh, you're doing yoga. Like, let me work on building your website. And I would try things out for free, with friends, because then there's not this pressure. You can take your time. You can watch a million YouTube tutorials on how to do something, and build that skill set up in any of the spare time that you have. And sometimes it means that you have a job until your career is paying for your life. So if if Gustavo doesn't have time to do all these things and to like be practicing his other skill sets outside of the work he's being paid for right now, sometimes it means like, you work at a coffee shop in the morning and that pays your rent. And then now you're definitely free at nights on the weekends. And like, this is what you're doing with your friends, and you're surrounding yourself with other creative people that are either going to be cool and flexible, like letting you try out your new skills with them, or they're going to teach you some of them. I was, to learn Premiere, I like bought a friend dinner and was like, hey, can you sit next to me at this restaurant and show me like the real basics? And now it's 3 years later, and I still just one day ago had a friend come over being like, can you explain this one really simple thing on Premiere to me that I don't get?
And also, I got to say, if you do that, make sure you take notes, because my sister calls me every other day. She's like, I'm making a video and like I'm trying to upload it to YouTube, but the quality's low. And I'm like, Michelle, I can't do this every day.
I can't. Yeah, taking notes. I mean, honestly, like finding extra time to watch YouTube tutorials, but really being intentional about your day. I'm really methodical. I have the nerdiest notebook with me that my boyfriend and I both have been doing, but we literally have like 7 extra things that we're trying to fit into our schedule every week.
Oh my God. Can you
if
show
you can
that?
see this?
Hold that up closer to the camera so I can get it.
So we mark out like every day has 5 spots you can color in on it, and we have 7 things we're trying to do more of that month.
Dude.
And then you try to make sure you're doing at least 5 of them a day.
It's so well organized. This is amazing.
And sometimes it's really generic things like do something social, because I would just be working and be at home and feel like, oh, I see my partner every day, that's enough. But it was like, no, meet up with a friend every day. And I wasn't doing that. And then now that's on my goals this month and I'm getting that done. But then in the days behind it, we have then for each week a list of like everything I have to get done that week, with invoices, with calls, with immediate to-do lists. And we check it off and are really methodical. And I think if you're really organized about your day, especially if you're an entrepreneur, the more organized you are about the day and the rhythm of your life, the less time you spend like feeling chaotic and shuffled, and the more free time you have to practice these things. I also don't have TV. And so I end up like having more time to play with learning these other skill sets and constantly like sharpening my creativity by doing that. And then also just following people that you're inspired by. Like some of the ways that I learn strategies, I just like follow all the people that are doing well at it and like look for patterns.
Right. I think to piggyback on the stay organized and have kind of a methodical approach to it, let's say like he starts out with filmmaking. I think you should pursue that craft until you're pretty good.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be a master. You don't have to wait years and years before you switch up to another path or pick up photography. But make sure you're not just kind of picking something. I know people that are serial creators. They'll like tinker around with something and then give it up. I want to do photography and then give it up. And it's like, make sure you actually stick with it.
Yeah.
And build it up. Be good enough that somebody would actually pay you, whether it's $100 or $1,000.
Yeah.
If somebody can pay you, all right, cool. You've mastered it. You've come far enough along. But a lot of the other interests he was talking about was graphic design, motion graphics, photography.
They're all related,
They're
dude.
all so related.
You're lucky.
So, and that's like what I did when I was
it's not like I dabble in golf, but I also want to kayak.
Right. Yeah. Like those are not going to help each other at all, I don't think, unless somebody like hits a golf ball at you while you're on
You're
a
like
kayak.
pedaling in a kayak with your golf clubs. You're like, I'm on a budget.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think that's like, so I was doing graphic design, like tinkering with graphic design and motion graphics, and then including those in my videos. And it's like there's such a tight marriage between all of those that like it's not going to be a big deal to dabble into those, and they're going to help lift each other up.
And when you feel stressed, ask for help. So I will tell clients like I can design really simple graphics and posters or some simple logos and things. And so I do take on that work. But if that isn't your sharpest skill yet, and you get into something where they ask for something you can't do, like know that you can subcontract someone. So for all these things you're dabbling in, when you get into the morphing of like, I'm going to start taking payment for them, but I'm not like totally confident on the entire spectrum of this craft, then know like, yes, I'm going to commit to this project. I'm going to do video, but maybe there's one aspect of it I can't do. Like I've been working with NPR on their social for the last 2.5 years, and I do video. And they wanted a really specific thing recently where the title was handwritten with marker. And I like watched the YouTube tutorials. I couldn't figure it out. Keyframes are just not my jam. And so that's when I knew in my back pocket, like I have a friend who can do that. And so I did take on the job knowing that a handful of the things were still like looser skill sets of mine, but I had a backup. So there wasn't a panic of like, I'm in over my head.
Yeah, I feel like that's I think one of the biggest thing about being a creator on an untraditional path is managing the kind of anxiety and the stress and the client requests. It can be difficult, but when you have people that you can count on when you're in a bind, that's going to be so important. So, and that's what it is. It's about building relationships.
Yeah. And picking the right clients, like not just taking anybody. So I know like I'm a pretty decent photographer, but all my work is seen on a 2-inch screen, you know? So like if then a client is like, oh, can we use one of these photos for this new billboard, which just happened to me recently. And I was like, I don't really do stuff of that scale,
Yeah.
where you're going to see every nose hair, it's not my thing. So knowing when you are in over your head and picking the clients that like fit for what your skill set is right now. Like even when I've designed 35 websites or so in the last few years, I'm not a website designer, just real great with Squarespace.
Yeah.
But I'll tell people, you know, like, yeah, if you want to start a website, it's only going to cost you like a couple $1,000s and get you through the first year or two of your company. Great. And then when you need more, you know, more like interaction type things you can do on your site that I can't code for you by hand, then save up and like upgrade your website in a couple of years when your company gets to that level. But like, I'm great for you at this point.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
good to be honest too with your client about what they're actually getting.
Be honest, and if there's a little bit of it that's out of your league, like if you can do that entire video, you just can't do the title card, make sure you have a backup friend.
Yeah.
and
When
if
it's not
you're in
working out.
school for it, great. This is your time to make those connections and keep them.
Totally. All right, you want to get to quick questions?
Yeah.
Quick questions, not quick answers, so feel free to elaborate. First one, this one's just specifically for you. Can I delete my Facebook yet, or do I have to keep it? Like, what's going on?
Personal profile?
Not personal, my business. I feel like I don't get any traction on there.
I would delete it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell most of my clients to delete them right now because pages are getting way, way, way less placement in the algorithm, just period. And they've actually done trials in certain countries with Facebook where they've taken all business pages completely out of your newsfeed. And then you have a separate tab that's like, do I want to see business news feeds? And like, no one's going to click that.
Yeah.
And they saw organic engagement drop like 90%. And it basically forces you to have to pay to have all of your content seen. So if you're going to keep a business page on Facebook right now, post significantly less and set aside in your budget, even if it is $20 a month and you're doing $5 a week to actually boost some posts so you know they're seen, or get your following on your personal page. If you're the kind of person who's like, you're not posting pictures of like your kids every day, whatever, something that you don't want the whole world to see, get followers on your personal page. We have one client like that who has 500,000 followers on her personal Facebook page. And like, that will never get sucked away.
Yeah.
Facebook can't take that away. Business pages can't change in that way.
Yeah.
So if you're not really attached to using your personal page aggressively, I would try to convert your followers there. Or if you're starting right now from scratch or you have a moment of virality like Terrence did, try to get those followers on your personal page.
Is that what
you
you're
can
doing
follow
with Terrence?
people.
Or is he a business?
Well, we started that and then The Voice called and they were like, you need a fan page. I was like, damn it.
And then you had to...
You
had to
amateurs.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
I don't know. Right. I like the idea of deleting it. It just sounds good because...
Delete it and then run an ad sometimes when you need to.
Yeah.
You don't need that page to be public to run something for it.
Oh.
So next time you do a big film,
How
you
do
have like minimalist part 2 or like, just kidding, now I'm a hoarder. Your next film.
Yeah. Just kidding, now I'm a hoarder. That's
Surprise,
a great...
I'm a hoarder.
Yeah.
I've been hoarding minimalist things.
Yeah.
So when you do that movie, just run an ad for it.
You have to have an account, but you don't have to have a public account. You can still run an ad. That's actually a good thing to know because, I get like 2 likes per post, and I'm like, what is the point here? Then I don't know. I think it actually hurts legitimacy. Because I think if people are going to pop around and see like, oh, like how many followers do you have?
Yeah.
But if you have like a pop in Instagram and all of a sudden your Facebook has 100 followers, it's like,
or change. The way your content is posted natively to each site should be different. So what does well for you on Instagram doesn't necessarily do well on Facebook. I have a client who we post almost every day on Instagram. She has 20,000 followers on Instagram, but a decent amount of engagement. Mm-hmm. She has almost 100,000 followers on Facebook, but no engagement because Facebook's just dying. But so now once a week, she does a Facebook Live for an hour every Thursday. And that gets a crazy amount of engagement. And that's like basically the only thing we do on there now. So maybe don't just repurpose, do never like auto post from Instagram onto all your platforms.
No, that's what I do. That's what I do all the time.
It's so tacky.
It's not tacky.
Yeah.
It's not tacky.
I'm a 12-year-old hater to be like,
yeah.
Just quit.
Tacky.
Just quit. You're
Check
tacky.
yourself.
Great job, old man.
Yeah, I think what I do, it's hard. It's hard. You can't just keep making different stuff for everything. What I do is...
Yeah, you're like that with Instagram stories. They're like formatted a certain way, whatever.
Right, because I think there's certain investment, right, in Instagram.
And you don't have to be big on every platform.
That's what I think is
Every
is the
toilet
key
paper
there.
company doesn't need a Snapchat. You really don't.
Yeah, Charmin. Why? Like, it's weird. Why are all these companies, all these brands have every single social media
And some people
account?
thrive on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
that's true.
The
Lewis
only-
House, I think he built his whole thing on LinkedIn.
The only way I would have different, the only way I'd be on a ton of platforms is if I found I had a really different following. So occasionally you'll see like you have a much older following on Facebook and a much younger following on Instagram. And then in that way, you're going to create really different type of content.
Right.
And there's some cool studies that'll show you like baby boomers don't trust brands. So they want like more DIY facts, like information, step-by-step stuff to build brand trust. Millennials want it to like look cool. They want to know like that person's cool. They know what they're doing. Like it looks good, you know? And like your even younger ones, like they just want it quick. You can't annoy them for more than 15 cents, you know?
They're not listening to this podcast.
They're not.
Or maybe they just gave up within the first
they're going
5
to listen to
minutes.
this in a history class one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like if you find that you have if you look at your analytics and you find that your follower demographic is really different on different platforms, then like, yeah, spread out. But otherwise you don't need to be on every platform. And like, if you're just going to post on Twitter and you're never going to interact with anyone, like get off Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, it's not what that's for.
Yeah.
It's timeline magnetic. If you're not interacting in the moment, it's a waste. If you're having auto posts go up at 4 a.m. when you're not there to interact.
Nobody's going to see it.
No, it's so stupid.
Mm-hmm. But I think you could
Over
probably
it.
do both of that. Because I do that. I push out the videos onto Twitter, like, because I'll make a 1-minute video that I'll put on Instagram, and then I'll push it out to Twitter. And then, it's not, the most reaction and interaction I get is just straight text based, is when I type something and I'm interacting with people. But like, I don't think it's bad to just like have those, throw it up there.
I would say the short summary is that like Snapchat is like day-to-day storytelling. LinkedIn is really good for article shares, like writing them, like writing notes.
'Cause that's where all the dorks are.
Yeah. No, it's just people who like to read. They can have it
Right.
up on their screen at work and it doesn't look like, why are someone's tits out right
Sure.
now?
Yeah. Because Instagram, you can't control that. It's just boobs will pop up and you're like, damn.
There's just boobs and boobs.
Damn
like,
it.
We love boobs, but,
we're a culture of boobs.
But yeah, and then, Facebook is somewhere where you can have more in-depth PR shares and editorial content. Instagram is really visual. And like, if you're just making visual content, then you don't need to be on all those platforms. If you're just making editorial content, like don't make a million Instagram posts that are just tons of words on words or screenshots of your Twitters. What's that?
Yeah, what is
Or
going
you're
on here?
screenshotting your Twitter to turn it into a photo.
Screenshotting your notes.
It's really something.
It's something that people are doing that isn't the best thing. But whatever. Do whatever. No. I mean, experiment, sure.
Yeah.
But then you're probably going to find out that
This is a great podcast to listen to if you want me to anonymously shame you for all the mistakes you've made on social media.
It's okay to shame as long as
Yeah.
it's anonymous. And it's
and
just
it depends on your
blanket.
purposes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know my older sister, love her. She married her college sweetheart. They have a bunch of kids. They live in South Carolina. Her Facebook is like a couple hundred friends, and it's basically like one big group chat text. It's like, here's a picture of what my kid's doing every day, Yeah. She's not putting up selfies. She's probably not even her own profile picture. It's probably like her kid's foot or something. Seriously, it's a cute foot. But it's like it's not like everyone has to do social media a certain way. But if you're intentionally trying to sell a brand, like know how to use these platforms. Really, I guess.
Question number 2.
Oh, these are quick response, aren't they?
They're not quick response. They're
Okay.
quick questions. But that was I was going to ask that one, but I was like, might as well just make it a part of the quick questions here. I knew it was going to go on for a very long time. But all right, a couple quicker ones. Where do you go when you're feeling doubt?
Ooh, Joshua Tree. I have the geo coordinates on my arm in case I ever
Oh, that's
forget
so
how to
cool.
get there.
What's so special about it?
It's just quiet. There is no Facebook in Joshua Tree. There's no service. Like Trump's not president in Joshua Tree. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah. I heard he's not president in California.
Yeah, no, but definitely not out there. It just reminds me that the world is huge and my shit doesn't matter and I'm really small.
Get to see the stars.
Yeah, it's just really quiet and it just takes me back to like a much calmer place.
What's the simplest advice that's the most important to follow?
Wow, usually such a quote person. What is like this? You may have to cut out real quick because there may be like a long, awkward pause in a podcast. Hold on to where you're from. It's where your heart goes when you're done.
I love that.
And it's just like I've always lived far away. I've moved far away from my family, but like keeping ties to like the people and the places that made you who you are. And it's what keeps you grounded to your most authentic self.
And last question, what one thing should people watch or listen to before they go to bed tonight? Actually, second to last question.
If you haven't heard Sleeping at Last, he's a musician. He doesn't ever perform out live, but he puts out these amazing little 4-song EPs called like Atlas, and each song is about a different aspect of space, or it's the soundtrack to a lot of like ABC shows. So you've probably heard his music and not known it. But his music, especially his record Light, which is just 4 songs, is so peaceful and beautiful and pure. It's probably one of the best things to listen to before bed every night, but tonight especially.
Great. And what's the best way for people to connect with you online?
At Hope Leigh on Instagram, HOPELEIGH, but you can remember it because it sounds like my name is Hopefully. Maybe just put a F in the middle.
Just put a foot in the middle. That's like your tagline. Just put a foot in the middle. All right, Hope. Thanks so much for doing the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. My favorite line that Hope said during this podcast was, don't get stuck in a life that sucks. You can choose to change your path at any given time. Sometimes it's the simplest advice that's the most important and the one that's closest to home. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.